Hi YouTube, welcome back to another video. Today I wanted to share my story and my experience with the Black conscious movement and how that played into my coming into prioritizing self-care for myself. So just a little background and why initially it was so revolutionary for me was because I was homeschooled in the suburbs of Virginia, and I did not go to like a huge, big university. I went to community college, and then after, just a few years of taking classes on and on, I ended up doing the family thing, and I had Autumn. So my exposure to a lot of positive urban blackness, black, greatness, and all the things, even though I took African American studies, there was no connect with as far as like an emotional connection to a desire to the conscious movement. Like literature was one thing, but then the conscious, spiritual side of African history and all those things, it was just like very separate. And I was involved with like a Black Student Alliance, but again, that was the Charlottesville, Virginia. That was the foothills of the Blue Ridge. Like it just wasn't a lot of that kind of action. Yes, I was around other Black people, but we were just focused on other things. So when I moved to Northern Virginia and I started tiptoeing into DC, I was like, y'all kind of different. Y'all doing things different. And I fell in love with the comedic scene. I fell in love with drumming circles and all that stuff when I went to this Howard University seminar around women in African spirituality and like these healers, and it was just like this whole thing. So that led me to, and I'm not gonna put any names up there, it isn't about so much them being negative or positive, but I joined this Black conscious group, and they were very active in the DC DMV area, and they did a lot of good things. They were doing outreach to the homeless and different shelters, and handing out things to the community moms. They did a lot of that. They also did these book reading circles weekly. They did a lot of fundraising. They did a lot of Kwanzaa events during that season. And I met a lot of beautiful people. And that led me to also having the opportunity, which I was so glad I experienced, joining a sister who did this like camp for young girls around healing, self-awareness, and confidence, and inner beauty. And she did this whole thing. It was really, really transformative for even the women that volunteered to lead these different workshops for these young girls. They were around like 9, and I'd say the oldest would be like 15. And where was it? It was at the Third Good it's on the tip of my tongue. I'll put like, that doesn't matter because she's still not doing it anymore. But anyway, I was really involved with that. And that season of my life, I poured so much into that, her outreach to the young girls, which was, like I said, very fulfilling, and this organization that I had joined. I was driving back and forth at the time, well over an hour with that, city traffic. At the time, when I first joined the group, I was pregnant with Raelle. And Autumn was very young. So I was driving back and forth. I was, like I said, donating. We would bring refreshments and put together. I would just give all that I could give to support this group. If it meant, putting together like a presentation, or just, how you're involved in a church, that type of interaction, just whatever you need me to do, I was there. And I was sister, peace, love, light, you know what I mean? It was a very mixed age group. And everyone had their role, and everyone was very involved, and we had like, sometimes we'd have these voting meetings, and there was someone who handled the money, someone who handled like representing the organization at, you know, these city councils and different things like that for the natives. Just they had a good heart. But being where I was, as all the things that I had going on in my personal life, and a little bit background on that. So I was pregnant with Raelle, and then even after her, did I bring her along? Yes. After she was born, I held on just a little bit, as much as I could, as far as my involvement, if I'm not mistaken. So this just wasn't okay, I, you know, dipped my toe in. I was, you know, part of this group for 3 months, and then I was out because I was like, I need to focus on my self-love, self-care. No, I had some history with these people. And I loved what I considered my role and my responsibility as a Black woman to, you know, sow into the embetterment of the Black people, and to continue on the legacy of Marcus Garvey and Martin Luther King and oh my God, the other civil rights activist. Help me. The other one. Y'all know what I'm talking about. With the glasses. Malcolm X. And oh my goodness, so many other people that, you know, the Black Panther movement, all these things. And so I felt this deep connection to that. And, you know, it was a lot of pride around, you know, like getting back to my roots and, you know, finding out who I was, and you know, learning Kiswahili, all these things that they talked about and like really pushed and encouraged us to delve into, you know, wearing African clothing and all this stuff. And when you don't have the foundation, when you're not grounded, when you don't know what you need to be doing for you, anything can be loosey-goosey, anything can slip, anything can be too much. And what that cost me was my burnout. That was my first experience with the burnout. Because at that season in my life, I was not the woman that I am today. And so, you know, going back to just the basics, you cannot pour from an empty cup. And what that also led me to realize was that people are going to be people, and to err is to be human, and to forgive is to be divine, or something like that, whatever they say. But what I also found out was that, you know, people, there were some issues in that organization that needed to be ironed out. People were doing funny things with the money. People weren't keeping up their end of the deal. Some people were pulling more weight than others. Some members weren't showing up and helping as much. Some people were taking all the credit and all the glory. Some people were in there fooling around with multiple members, you know, and women's feelings were getting hurt. Like, oh, he talking to you, you, and you. You know what I mean? So, like, no, I don't want to be polygamous. You know what I mean? Like, it got messy. But that's life. That's people. That's anything. That's the family dynamic. You can see that anywhere. But are you sure in yourself enough to ride the waves of all that drama and be like, look, this is where I fit in. This is what I will and will not do. This is what I can and cannot do. And this is, you know, what is in the best interest of me. And what made me pull away from the collective. What pulled me away from, you know, for the people, was when it almost endangered me. It endangered my emotional well-being. It endangered, you know, me doing what was best for my family and me spreading my resources. Then my breaking point was when they were having the riots in Baltimore, and I had a Toyota Highlander at that time, so I had a third row, so that car could seat easily 2, 3, 6, 7, 8, maybe easily 5 adults and 3 children, give or take a car seat or 2. You know, it had that third row. Sister Ashley, peace, love, and light. You know, would you be willing to caravan some of us as we go up here to support and, you know, protest against some of these injustices and da 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 da. At that time, Baltimore was on fire. I'm pregnant. Autumn's a toddler. Are y'all gonna, I don't work, so I'm not sure if me holding up a sign, driving y'all up here to a burning city to be seen and heard would be like, I felt very pressured, and I felt like, I don't know if that's the best for me. Like, a lot of these men had children, and now I'm gonna be realistic about the like I said, it was a mixed crowd. So you had some the elders in the group. You had men that were not married that had children that, you know how it is when the men can move differently than we can move with young children. Someone's got to raise the babies, and 75% of the time, it's not the men that have the young children. Let's just be honest. For the dads that are very proactive, and they are the dads that do it all, I'm not saying this is the negative thing. I'm just saying, or like, you're better or less. I'm just saying, shout out to the dads that have the young ones and do more of the domestic balance. And for the men that still have kids and get them on the weekends, whatever. But these men didn't have their kids a lot. They weren't bringing them to the meetings and stuff like that. So, I'm sure they were great dads. I'm sure I hope they paid their child support or supported and cared for their, because like I said, a lot of them weren't married, but girlfriends, fiancés, whoever. But, I'm saying all that to say, I was like, can't y'all ask someone else? Where can y'all rent a van? We got the money. Like, can we? I don't know if I feel comfortable driving to a burning city in the heat of some stuff, pregnant, and every day I don't feel good. Autumn, I don't know who's gonna babysit her. It just wasn't and you want to be a team player. You want to be like, yeah, because someone is dead, blood has been shed, and you have to, stand for something. You have to help. You have to be heard. You have to be seen. And I was so conflicted about that I asked my dad. I said, called him on the phone. I said, Daddy, I'm a part of this group, and they want to know if I can help them get to Baltimore, or some of the members get to Baltimore, because they were all going to go up. And before I could even finish my sentence, he said, absolutely not. And I said, and it was then that I began to look at that situation like, I think this is a bit much, because it's not their fault that they didn't know to think about what they were asking me before they asked me. And that's the thing too. People aren't going to always have your best interests in mind. People aren't always going to have, it's not anyone else's responsibility to think about your safety, your boundaries, what works for you, what works for your finances, what works for your well-being, what works for your emotional well-being, what works for, what. No, that's for you to determine, and that's for you to set the boundaries around that. So I began to pull back. I began to stop spreading myself so thin. I began to stop feeling like it was my sole responsibility to keep going, to keep pouring into a lot of things that that just weren't getting done. Now, my disappointment in this particular organization is that they did not have a brick and mortar hub. Like, and this was they had roots. They had been an organization for quite some time. So I'm like, so what have you accomplished? Because I'm new. I'm a woman. I'm a mother. I have limited resources for this stuff. I'm giving what I can, but I also have a responsibility to my children. I also have a responsibility to my household. And, at the time, the girl's father, he wasn't, like the best leader, but a real man would be like, hold on, baby, what are you trying to do? either he will be on board and be like, okay, we're going to do this together. This is what we're going to tithe and give. And then that's, this is going to be the 10% or whatever you all want to establish. But he's also going to be like, a man's ability to protect and provide ties into keeping you safe from being not exploited, but just doing too much. Following a man's lead on certain things keeps you from being out here just like, I believe that. You know why? Because the men that I went on to experience life with didn't like the idea of someone they cared about doing anything that was too strenuous, too stressful, had her out here like, wait a minute, you trying to do what? Matter of fact, had I had that type of man in my life at that time that they knew that had presented himself like, yeah, we are a family unit. We are a part of your organization or whatever you're trying to do. And you run that through me first. You ask me, can you use my vehicle to go up here and do all these things? That's what a real man would do. And I don't think it would have been the same. Honestly, I kind of believe it wouldn't have been the same. It wouldn't have gone down like that. Not that he was trying to use me, this individual that asked me, but just men approach men differently. And they know what to say and which ones they can do certain things with. And I think with the person I'm with now, he would have been like, okay, baby, what are you trying to do? I know, you have a passion for giving, being involved, but, I'll drive you and drop you off if that's what you want to do. Here's the money allocated for all that you want to do to give to that, but then, I'm gonna cut it off. Not cut off the finances from me and me getting, what I like to do to pamper myself and have a good time. No, he never gonna give me no limit like that. There are no budgets when it comes to that. But I'm talking about the things that, he will have a discernment about that protects me from, again, running too much. Because I really was like, there was no end to how much I did for that group. And they were, I don't want to say going nowhere fast, but let me go back to some of the things that I noticed. So I said they didn't have a brick and mortar space. We were renting this community center for our book club nights. We would, what were some of the other things we did? We would always constantly have to raise money for, every little thing we wanted to do. Some of the money started getting funny. I mentioned that. Some of the things that the group were spending, we did spend money on, wasn't always the best investments. Just little things that, we needed to be on the same page. We needed full disclosure. If we had money meetings about deciding what happened with the money and where the money was allocated, I don't recall. And if we did, I didn't go to any of these meetings. But anyway, at that season of my life, I needed to find out who I was. I needed to know what I needed. I didn't even know what I needed. I needed to find out what was best for me. I needed to find out what I loved. I needed to find out who I was. I needed to find out what kind of mother did I really want to be. I had to find out what kind of partner did I want to be, because that won't end. So it was almost like an escape from and a distraction from a lot of the emptiness and voids that I had going on at that time. And so when I pulled away from that organization, I started to focus on, okay, my exit plan. And I have another video about that, how I was like, I don't recognize my life. I don't recognize this relationship. I don't recognize any of this. I'm just here and things are happening to me, at me, left and right, and just beating me up and slapping me in the face. And I don't like this feeling. And I can't continue to blame him. I can't continue to blame my lack of finances, my lack of fulfillment. I definitely can't look at my children and blame them because they need me. I can't blame anyone now but myself. So when I pulled away from the distraction of that organization at the time, and I started to, again, learn new things, learn myself, create a plan, create, a bigger dream, create the desires that I truly wanted. Like, what do I want? How do I want to feel every day when I wake up? Oh, man. Now, I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, organizations that, that is the focus. My grandmother has nothing but sweet memories and amazing stories to tell about how in her college days she got organized and they did protests and stand-ins, and how, in Hampton in that time, they saw the change. They also had a different collective thought. Women and men were different. She was a young single college student who had, that was the luxury that she had to give that part of her to that. And they made waves. They made true change. She speaks with such pride about how their progress got them the ability to eat at restaurants, go to the mall, go downtown, and do all the things that white students did at that time. That's amazing. That's amazing. So I'm not saying or taking away from the fact that these different organizations, don't have any benefit or aren't making waves in other cities and other places. Maybe to this day, that organization that I put away, maybe they've gotten their mess together and they've made some strides. I hope from that organization, like I said, I learned a lot of amazing things, read a lot of amazing books, found my own new spiritual practices, experienced going to a temple, experienced Kwanzaa, experienced the feeling of belonging and camaraderie, and striving for something that did feel good, that gave me a sense of accomplishment. Absolutely. There was one more thing I was going to say I found. Oh, I learned another side of DC. A lot of their meetings and things like that they had were at Sankofa Bookstore. It's an amazing place. I met different authors, different speakers, different, professors and people that had written books and written lectures. Francis Cress Welsing. I could just go on and on at the benefits, yes, but it cannot be at the expense of your peace, your sanity, your balance in your life, pulling away from your family, your children, your resources, my limited resources at the time, because again, I was not working. What was the next thing? And emotional intelligence, not intelligence. That's not the emotional balance. Is that the word I want to use? Emotional triggers. When someone says to you, presents information to you, a scenario to you, something that has happened in the world, that is plaguing an extension of you. So, and when I say extension, that means, okay, I am a black woman. So something that impacts other black women, yes, I'm going to feel. It's gonna sting. I'm a mother. So if something happens to another mother, I'm gonna feel that. I'm gonna be impacted by that emotionally. When something happens to another nurse or healthcare professional, I'm gonna feel that. That's gonna sting. I'm using that as an example. And so it may be for you, whatever your connection or your ties to a particular thing that is an extension of your identity, you're going to feel. But everything that someone presents and then they say, now, What are you going to do about it? What can you do about it? Step back and ask yourself, is this going to promote positive change, or is this going to make me feel exhausted, make me feel worse, invoke a negative response that doesn't help me or anybody else, versus something that is going to be healing, transformative, maybe something that you can do that, advocates and informs other people. You have to know the difference. Going to a candlelit visual, saying a prayer, sending a card, sending flowers, informing the children that you know around you about safety and what to do when police that is a more positive response to some of the violence and injustices we've seen. I feel like, for me personally, it does not benefit me or help me emotionally to get on the computer and start arguing with someone, or voicing my pain in comments and online, or going to protest, and because the hate and the anger and the pain twisted like that doesn't feel good to me. That is not going to be beneficial for me. Hating all police officers doesn't feel good to me. Endangering my 2 young children to be seen and heard in a city or in a situation, a place that is burning and in an uproar, doesn't feel good and empowering to me. Even though there's pain, even though this is impacting me, and if it was my son, if it was my child, if it was some kind of discrimination and racial this, that, and the other geared to me, yes, of course I would feel that. But there are other empowering ways to take the pain and use it in another way. The self-care allows you to protect yourself from the burnout and the exhaustion of joining that struggle. Sometimes turning off the TV and turning off the radio and stepping away from all the finger wagging and the blaming and sometimes that is what you need to do. Sometimes some families feel like they need to move away from the inner city hustle and bustle, where the threat is higher to be racially profiled and all these other things. Sometimes that is what they feel like they need to do. My dad did it. My dad grew up in the inner city of Richmond, and he saw a lot of hard, terrible things. His experience through, was not positive. So he moved us to the suburbs where it was less of a threat. And for some people that stayed in the city, they found other ways to lessen the threat. So you've got to know, with the sense of self-awareness and sense of self, what will work for you. But you have to be honest with yourself, and you have to ask the questions to yourself, what do I need? Oh no. What do I need? I don't want to stop this video. Bear with me. We're just going to let it rain. I'm so sorry. I'm not even going to try to shout through the ringing. And you know how sometimes you don't want to hang up on somebody? They're going to be like, what the heck? Why you hang up on me? Answer the phone. One more second. Hold on. They're going to hang up soon. Okay. So,